America Uncanceled. I'm Mercedes Schlapp. Matt is traveling, and I just came back from the great state of Washington. And I got to tell you, what's happening there when it comes to our schools, very scary. Liberals across the country failed our kids when they closed schools and pushed remote learning. Now we're seeing that studies show that the school closures led to the largest decrease in reading scores in more than 30 years. While students suffered, the teachers' unions were happy to not require their members to show up for work. Now, there's a new excuse to not have to work at schools. Democrat-run cities such as Baltimore, Philadelphia, and Cleveland have had many early dismissals this year, and the Department of Education is blaming, guess what? Global warming to once again move to remote learning for students. A spokesman said no one is immune from the impacts of climate change. Olivia Barnard just won a school board seat in Dripping Springs, Texas. She joins me now, and she wants to put an end to this madness. Olivia, thank you for joining me.
Hi, Mercedes. How are you? Thank you for having me.
I'm great. I got to tell you, you're one of our favorite folks that you come out to CPAC every single year. We've gotten to know each other. I think you were so inspired to even run for school board because you saw what was happening in your district, and we are seeing more conservatives win these races at the local level. What are you seeing right now when you read these stories of the fact that now climate change is the reason why we're moving our children back to remote learning? First it was COVID lockdowns, now climate change.
I think the really scary common denominator is that any government decisions can shut down public schools, and it's terrifying. It's not good for families, it's not good for communities, and we are now seeing the impact, the social emotional development, the test scores. This was a travesty for our students, and it's terrifying that it can happen again. The narrative can just change.
So, I know that this recent study just came out. I read it in the Wall Street Journal about students really suffering. I mean, delayed in terms of what they're doing in terms of their reading scores, their math scores. I mean, in some cases, they've lost from 2 to really 4 years of learning. Like, it's going to take a long time for these students to catch up. What do you think is going to be needed to make sure that our children are able to be at the right levels?
I think number one, we have to know where each student stands, and we have to keep them in school. We have to support our educators. We are seeing the test results now, and we know that the students academically are behind, but they're also really suffering in social respects and emotional development. So there's a lot of elements. We have to support our educators and give them the tools and resources that they need to identify the delays and to be able to address those. But you know what we need now more than ever is parent involvement. We need parents showing up and working with our educators, being involved in the process, and just showing up for our kids.
In your experience as you decided to run for school board, and let's make this very clear, you weren't involved in politics really before, and you really stepped up. What made you decide it's my time to run, it's my time to make a change at your local school board?
Generally in life, I felt like it was kind of my time to serve, but any parent that shared how I felt in March of 2020, when you truly feel like your rights as a parent are being infringed upon, and suddenly you're not in control of the educational and health choices of your child, it was really terrifying, and our community really rallied. And just through that community, I kind of became the person who was stepping up and standing up, and ultimately decided to take this challenge, and it has been so much fun. It's been very rewarding so far.
And I almost feel like the proud parent, because I feel like you came to CPAC, really kind of got all these tools and learned so much, and then you were like, okay, I'm going in and running. So I feel like the proud mama that, like that. I felt very much like, okay, look at her go, our Olivia running for school board in Texas.
Yes. And you should feel proud about that. It's funny, I tell the story of Carrie Lake and I all the time, because Carrie and I were new to this whole world. And I was like, I'm running for school board. And she's like, I'm running for governor. Overachiever.
I know, right? Well,
But
she might end up being president of the United States one day. Maybe you'll be Secretary of Education. But Olivia, I really want to dig into this story about this climate change. I was shocked when I read this article. When you have multiple cities, obviously there's these heat waves that are happening across the country, really impacting places like California. As we know, Governor Newsom, he can barely keep the electric grid from falling apart. But then you're talking about many of these cities where, because some of these school buildings are too hot, okay, that's the reason, too hot, that these kids are going to have to learn remote once again. I don't know about you, but you're from Texas, and I grew up in Florida. Talk about two hot states. I mean, I remember going to elementary school when we had like the rinky-dink air conditioning. It was hot in the classroom, but we were all in there learning. I mean, seriously, is climate change the best excuse that these liberals can give to push these kids into remote learning?
I have to tell you, this is the first I've heard of it, but it's absolutely mind-blowing to me that any district in any city in any state is shutting down learning because of the heat waves. We owe our children everything, and they deserve the opportunity to learn. So if any city needs to be making improvements to facilities within districts, that's what they need to be doing. But it makes no sense to just go remote because of the weather. What does that do to the community in general? I mean, parents go to work. Going to class is a safe haven for a lot of these kids. It's mind-blowing to me.
Well, and then you're talking about the fact that I was just visiting the state of Washington, and obviously as they explained it to me, they go, it's a beautiful state, but it's a deep blue state, especially in the area I was in Kings County. And I got to tell you, I kept asking, I always like to kind of poll people and kind of ask them, what are the issues really impacting your state? The one issue that kept coming up were the schools. And we just saw, for example, that in Washington state during the first week of school, the teachers held a strike. So guess what? The kids are not in school. So talk about how, harmful this is to the children, where they're not able to be in school because not only are we talking about climate change, not only did we have to deal with over a year of COVID lockdowns and schools being shut down, but also the teachers basically going on strike and not being there for the children.
It makes you wonder what the big picture is, right? Here's what I can say for Texas. We have to have strong governors, and the governors who are going to put the right policies into place so that school districts have more control and can keep students in school. What I will tell you in Texas, love Governor Abbott. He's done a lot of great things for us, as well as our Attorney General, Ken Paxton. In my district, which is immediately south of Austin, Austin, Texas, you've seen them on national news many times in the last couple months. They'll be shutting down, I believe, 16 campuses this year because the exodus is so huge. Conservative or liberal, Republican or Democrat, we have to keep social justice and politics out of our schools. I am very involved politically, but we have to protect our children from that. So whatever the narrative is at the moment, climate change or whatnot, we have to keep our schools open and our children learning and giving them a safe place to go every day.
I absolutely love what you just said. Keep social justice and politics out of our schools. I think that is such an important message, I think, for every parent to share and speak up in these schools, because what you're seeing in terms of so many of these curriculums, and again, being in the state of Washington, I can tell you, and talking to so many of these activists, we've seen in these school districts, like Edmonds, a school district, where they push this gender confusion curriculum, where they're basically saying, okay, if you're in kindergarten, or in third grade, we can talk about sexual orientation, or we can talk about the multiple pronouns, the 3 categories of pronouns, or whether you're a girl or a boy or a neither or both. It's basically talking about these different genders in kindergarten. I would like to see more of Governor Ron DeSantis' vision and his actions across the country. That should be the model of where we need to take parental rights, when he signed the Parental Rights Law, which basically bans teachers from indoctrinating children and really teaching them this gender ideology from kindergarten to third grade. What are your thoughts on that?
I agree 100%. And I was going to say the same thing. Governor DeSantis did a phenomenal job building the platform. And the thing about it is it protects every child and it protects every parent and it really protects educators as well. The problem is that the media took off with it and called it the Don't Say Gay bill, which is not the case. What he's saying is kindergarten through third grade, it is not the place of a public school or a public educator to talk to our children who have undeveloped minds at that age, to talk to them about sexual orientation or gender identity. You said a great word. You said confusion. The problem right now is the difference between indoctrination and influence in education. Ideologies have no business in our public schools, period. Every single child's physical, emotional, and mental health should be a priority to every adult in their lives. Yes, every child should be accepted and loved for who they are, but the lines have become very, very blurred. And, we have to keep it out of the schools. It's harmful.
Parental rights laws. We need school choice laws so that parents can be in charge of their children's educations, not by what zip code you live in or how these teachers' unions dictate where your children go to school. That needs to stop. And this is why we need more people like you, Olivia, involved in these school boards at the local level and really being a strong voice. What's your advice to parents as we go back to school and as many of them will face some of these big challenges in their school districts?
The number one thing, and I'll tell you, I am a believer in public school, and I don't want us to throw out the bathwater with the baby with the bathwater. Yeah. Because 90% of us are going to rely on public school. So the number one message is this: parents, get involved. I was the one putting Rocco, Rocco,
yes.
I was putting Rocco on the bus and calling it a day. And I'm blessed. He's had an amazing public education. We love our district. But if we are going to complain about the things that we're seeing, if we're not involved, shame on us. Rather, it's volunteering once a day, class mom, subs are us, full-time substitute teacher, just making sure that we're there and that we're involved and that we have relationships in the community and our district.
Well, I got to tell you, you inspire us, and we're so proud of all the work that you're doing, and you're such a rising star, and I'm so proud to call you my friend. Olivia Barnard, thank you for joining us on America Uncanceled, school board member in the Dripping Springs, Texas. And we appreciate all that you're doing to protect our children and make sure that we keep our schools and these teachers' unions accountable.
Awesome. Thank you, Mercy.
All right, take care. Thank you all. And thank you all for watching America Uncanceled. There is going to be so much going on this week at CPAC Now.